Hi guys, a few days ago the Conservative Party engaged in another political stunt when it came to immigration, this time posting a list of benefits for asylum seekers. Now it's important to remember that the benefits that asylum seekers receive were also in place when the Conservative Party were in charge. I'll show you the list in just a moment, but before we get to that, I want to show you this pathetic political stunt by somebody on GB News. An alleged reporter, well, have a look at what she did.
It's unbelievable. It goes on. Discounts on theatre shows. Apparently free mobile phone on arrival, taxpayer-funded legal aid, free bus travel. I've got to say, this is a better life than I've got. I'm off. I'm getting on a small boat. I'm going to fix my life. Goodbye.
This is supposed to be a news channel. They want to be taken seriously. They don't want to be treated as a joke. Well, then maybe stop engaging in such pathetic antics. Okay, so let's go to the list. So this is from the Conservative Party a few days ago. Asylum seeker, here's your list of perks. And remember, most of these or all of these were in place when the Conservative Party were in charge. So first of all, housing and food provided directly by the state. Okay, as we know, the Conservative Party is only interested in lying, misleading the public, convincing people that, well, maybe asylum seekers shouldn't have access to housing and free food. Oh, wait a minute, they're not allowed to work. If they're not allowed to work, then how the heck are they supposed to feed themselves? How the heck are they supposed to provide housing for themselves? Once again, if they're not allowed to work. Second, hotel accommodation, including 3-star hotels with facilities such as free Wi-Fi, bar, restaurant, garden, and terrace. Okay, they're not hotels. They're not 3-star hotels. They cease to be hotels when asylum seekers are placed inside them. And of course, the Conservative Party know this, so they're lying to the public once again. Look, when was the last time you stayed in a hotel where you had to share the room with 3 other people? You don't know. See, this is the thing. These asylum seekers are being placed in ex-hotels. The hotels are being converted into accommodation for asylum seekers and is basic accommodation. They get some facilities, but they don't get bars. I don't know where this came from. Restaurant, you can probably call it a restaurant, but they get a fixed menu. They're not able to select from a great choice of food. They're extremely restricted. And of course, also, their movements are restricted. When was the last time you stayed in a hotel where they kept tabs on you? Next, weekly allowance of £49.18 per person. Okay, this is one that's been doing the rounds, and unfortunately, it's not being corrected by the media. So the £49.18 per week is for people who are self-catering. So if you're an asylum seeker and you're not receiving food from the state, support from the state when it comes to catering, then you're given an allowance. So the allowance, the number is correct, but in a limited and specific way. But it doesn't make sense to put this number in with all of the other perks, as they call them. Access to food banks, this is actually the case. This is actually true. But once again, it depends on the food bank. The food bank will allow certain asylum seekers to access them if they're not getting the support they need. Once again, asylum seekers are not allowed to work. Free cooking lessons. Okay, I'm going to group a lot of these things together because they are related. Also free bus travel, free driving lessons, free or discounted Spanish and French lessons, university bursaries, free swimming, free PlayStation consoles. This is actually part of the facilities within the hotel, so it's not everyone gets a free one. You get used to one. And other things that are related here. For example, legal aid. Okay, a lot of these things are provided by councils. So there are some councils like Richmond Borough Council which provide a Richmond card. And this allows people within the constituency, within the council area, to access certain facilities. And this card has been extended to some asylum seekers. So asylum seekers are able to access some services because the Richmond Council believes it's easier to do it this way. Now, something you always hear from the right wing and GB News and others is these people don't want to integrate. Why are they not integrating? Why aren't they learning the language? Why aren't they participating in society. Well, some of the things you see here, for example, discounted theatre tickets or free swimming lessons or courses or bus travel, driving lessons, things like this, these things help people integrate. So remember, these asylum seekers are not allowed to work. They're not able to access normal services because they don't have any money. So if you help them access the services, they integrate, the mix in society, the integrate into society, isn't that a good thing? Once again, we keep hearing from the right wing how these people are not integrating. Well, some councils, not all councils, are providing these services. Some councils are providing some services and others are not. But in some cases, the asylum seekers receive a card where they can access some services, and in some cases they don't receive anything. It's a mixed bag. But generally, where there are services for asylum seekers, it's money coming from the state, it's coming from central government, from the Home Office, it's part of a program to help people integrate. There are a whole range of issues here, but it's not as clean cut as of course the Conservatives are trying to sell it. The last one I really want to talk about is the Home Office clothing packs. So these are, once again, some clothes and stuff that asylum seekers receive. A mobile phone, in some cases, is not provided by the Home Office, but it's provided by charities who are helping asylum seekers access legal services. And then finally, taxpayer-funded legal aid. Once again, they don't have any money. They're not allowed to work. How are they supposed to access legal aid? Like, if you have no job, if you have no means to pay for a lawyer, one will be provided for you. And the same case with asylum seekers. So while the Conservatives are trying to sell this as perks, these are basic requirements provided by councils. They're basic services provided by the state, in many cases because people can't pay for them themselves. So the solution would be, of course, to allow them to work. But the Conservatives and Reform UK and their friends at GB News are against the idea of allowing asylum seekers to work. It would be much cheaper to allow them to work. They would pay taxes, they would contribute to the state, and they wouldn't rely on these perks that are being presented here. But the response from people like Robert Jenrick is it would create a pull factor. Yes, allowing asylum seekers to work would be a pull factor, but we're talking about people who are already in the country. These asylum seekers don't want to be a burden. They don't want to sit around in a hotel doing nothing all day. They would prefer to be working. And as we've seen, when it comes to delivery drivers, a lot of them are working. But unfortunately, they're not paying taxes and they're not receiving the protections that normal workers receive. So the logical conclusion to this would be allow asylum seekers to work, and then you don't need to spend money on so-called perks. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.